Welcome back to Weekend Express, and thank you so much for staying with us. We are still having that conversation about how to take children to school, or rather way to school children, especially here in Kenya for the underserved children. This is a conversation I'm having with Hadija Fuad Ali. She is the founder of Fanikisha Elimu here in Kenya, and we will talk more about what needs to be done, especially as we approach the International Day of the Child, or World International Child Day, or rather World Day, International Day of Children. And Hadija, before the break, we were talking about the challenges that kids in these areas face, and perhaps this could be maybe one of the reasons that inspired you to take teaching and educating learners as a passion. Perhaps what inspired you to focus, or rather, or to take on teaching?
I grew up in a household that valued education a lot. My mother is a teacher by profession.
So it runs in the family.
Yes, and she inspired me to be who I am today. She worked to empower teachers and support learners, not only in Kenya and not only in East Africa, but worldwide, where she led projects that support learners and empower teachers. And these projects that she headed led to the establishment of quality, sustainable early childhood development programs for children of all ages. So I grew up visiting some of the rural parts of the coast region where I was born and raised, where we would visit the community schools that my mother was heading, and this inspired me by seeing how she was supporting the learners and empowering the teachers. I decided to take this as my career. At first, I thought, well, I will just go straight into establishing a community-based organization, a community school. I didn't know that I would first be a teacher. And being a teacher actually helped me learn more about the child, about the children, how they grow, how they develop, and the difference me as a teacher I can make to the community.
Which other countries perhaps did your mom venture into? You said she ventured not only in Kenya, East Africa, but also globally.
Yes, Kazakhstan, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Pakistan, such areas.
And you traveled with her all these areas?
No, I grew up my mother traveling to go and support and empower teachers, but I didn't travel with her to those places. But we did travel for holidays to other places.
Brilliant. Yeah. So growing up in the coast region, of course, there were some of the difficulties that perhaps you saw that the children were facing, and the things that perhaps that you were experiencing also as a child. First of all, did you manage to go to private school learning, or did you go through the public system?
I went to private school learning.
Yes. So the differences that you established there were quite, you would see for those who went to private school and public school is quite different. What are some of those that still exist as differences between these learners?
The resources, the infrastructure, the overcrowded classes, and just one teacher in the classroom. There's no equality in the education. I mean, you find a school in the underserved community and another school in the urban area that share the same curriculum, but the students are not learning the same thing. Because at the end of the school year, a child should be a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, we have benchmarks to be able to know that this child is moving to another class, should be able to read these words, high frequency words, sight words. This will happen in a school, in a private school, sharing the same curriculum with a public school, but it won't happen in a public school. The teachers are quite overwhelmed in the public schools, and also they lack a lot of resources to support the learners.
And so along the way you went through school yourself, you were able to acquire learning, and you established Fanikisha Elimu. What was the idea, the concept behind it? So
I identified an existing need. How it all started is after I did go through a fellowship program that reimagines education in Kenya, and that means I had to think of a way or a project that will be able to have an impact in my community. And I started going into Kibera slums and deep sea slums to first see how things were, and I saw the existing need of of the schools in the underserved communities. And through this, I wanted to help and support the teachers and learners and give back to the community with the knowledge and skills that I have as a teacher.
What was also, of course, some of the other reasons that perhaps necessitated you to start the organization? Because Isiolo and Nairobi counties, those are vast regions in terms of size and population.
Basically, because I live in Nairobi, so it was easier for me to go into the underserved communities in Nairobi, and with Isiolo also. I was able to venture into Isiolo because I knew the director through my mom, the director of education of Isiolo County, who happened to be interested in what I'm doing and asked me to go in and help and support the teachers and the learners. In Isiolo County, I mostly dealt with the teachers, less with the learners, because what I found that was impactful in my in the project that I do is sharing mentoring best practices in the classroom. So I go into the classroom and I do a demonstration, and the teacher sees what I'm doing, and then she takes notes, and then she can be able to do the same with her learners when I'm not there. So like it can be more impactful for them. But then it's quite challenging if you're doing it in a different county because of the logistics. That means I only did it a few times. And then that's it. But I keep on getting in touch with the ECD coordinators to ensure that they're still going through what I had taken them through when I was there.
And you mentioned that in Isiolo you dealt with teachers, and ECDE teachers are some of the critical component, because the ages of, as you say, 3 to 8 is where they focus on. What are some of the issues that perhaps they go through in trying to ensure that a child is able to gain this knowledge?
So ECD teachers still need to be recognized. They need to be empowered. They need to be supported and motivated for them to be able to support the learners. I can tell you that ECD teachers are very passionate about what they're doing, and they go through a lot of challenges, like I told you, overcrowded classes, also special needs children that hasn't yet been identified among public schools, because this is some of the challenge that these teachers are facing. They do not have the learning support that they need for them to be able to differentiate their teaching and learning to suit the needs and abilities of different children in their classrooms. And that's a really huge one. And they are tasked with the ECD teachers, early childhood teachers, are tasked with establishing the foundational knowledge of these young children, and these children are the future education, the future of our country, and it starts from there. It starts from early years. Just like when you're building a house, you need a very strong support foundation for your house to be supported, and that's where the ECD teachers come in. They support the foundation of the child.
When you talk about recognition of these ECD teachers, what perhaps would you be meaning? Because whereas they have been able to be taken, the government has taken them through the various learning processes, teaching them to go teach children. What are some of the gaps that still exist?
They do. The government does take them for training, but not continuous. They need that continuous training. Like I said, education is transforming. It's now a fast pace, so they do get they do get training. Some do not. I have personally interacted with teachers in Kibera slums who have never been in a training workshop. They do come from college and they just come straight into the classroom. So getting to hear all this is when I just felt that with my knowledge and skills I can come in and empower these teachers. And like I said, the teachers are very passionate about what they're doing, but they do not have adequate training and resources to teach.
And when you look at now the other counties, for instance, venturing into Nairobi and Isiolo, were there any similarities that you saw, apart from the differences that resources, maybe those in Nairobi could be able to afford a few things here and there, being in the capital city? Were there any similarities you found out between the two Nairobi and Isiolo counties?
The similarity that I found was that the schools in Nairobi and the schools in Isiolo do get some bit of funding from other organizations that they can be able to support the learners, but it's very little support. And that's why local, international, and government stakeholders need to essentially weigh in on this.
What would be the most important, perhaps, apart from giving them continuous training, what would be the most important, rather the shot in the arm for ECDE teachers to help them be able to deliver their work to children?
Motivate them by giving them a good salary.
Because at the end of the day, okay.
Yes.
Now, when you look at, the International Day of Children is coming up. There is a theme that is, has been set for this day, especially to focus on the children. And when you look at the African child, does this perhaps in a way speak to motivate how an African child goes to school or is taught?
So this year's theme for World Children's Day on November 20th is equality and inclusion for learning. Like I mentioned earlier, inclusion has not yet been focused in our schools, in the underserved communities. And inclusive practices aims to minimize and remove barriers to learning and support to facilitate the success of all learners regardless of their socioeconomic background. So I feel that this year's theme will have a huge impact, and also for us teachers to think about how we can help and support the teachers and the learners in the underserved communities so that they can be able to differentiate their learning, their teaching, to suit the needs and abilities of all the children in the classrooms.
And as a fellow teacher, or rather one who has of course gone through the education system here in Kenya, stakeholders are yet to implement some of these things. Apart from of course, the overcrowding and other things that exist in this country, and motivation, of course, to teachers. What other thing do stakeholders need to look at, especially for teachers, because you are the people who handle the children for most of the time?
The mental health of the teachers, because the teachers are burdened with a lot of planning, lessons, teaching, admin work, and I have seen the importance of focusing on the teachers' mental health for the success of teachers and learners.
And so, what is perhaps your passion and vision as as you go through Fanikisha Elimu, as you impart knowledge on the teachers?
I envision Kenya and also in Africa where children are given the opportunity to be active participants in their learning process, and they're also well equipped with the foundational skills to learn and thrive, and also for continuous teacher training and professional development to promote the skills required to teachers to deliver the most effective and highest standards of quality education to their learners.
And perhaps your plans and long-term goal as you move forward?
So my long-term goal for Fanikisha Elimu is to ultimately see the mission succeed, and to continuously help the communities in Kenya and also Africa through developing sustainable programs and projects that will empower teachers and support learners, and effectively engage more teachers and learners across the country and the continent of Africa.
Brilliant. And perhaps your closing remarks to to inspire teachers, to learners, even as you end up the interview, as you can perhaps look into that camera and tell them a few things, being a fellow teacher, to be able to go on with their work, because as you said, there is the mental burden and some of the things that they look into. For the children, for the learners, I would just say that the world is yours. And for the teachers, I want to say that you're all incredibly doing great work for your learners, and we are here, we are supporting you, and we love you all. Thank you so much. That is Hadija Fuad Ali, the founder of Fanikisha Elimu here in Kenya, speaking to us more about taking the children to school. Now, away from that, now the ever-rising cost of living has taken a toll on a majority of Kenyans who have seen the cost of commodities slowly erode their earnings.